In the early 1930s, as Europe rebuilt after the Great War, Germany quietly rearmed under Hitler's rising regime. Among its new weapons was an aircraft that would redefine psychological warfare, the Junkers Ju-87, known to history as the Stuka. Short for Sturmkampfflugzeug or dive bomber, the Stuka wasn't designed for speed or beauty. It was engineered for precision, a machine built to drop bombs with surgical accuracy. Developed by Hermann Pohlmann at Junkers, its inverted gull wings, fixed landing gear, and screaming sirens gave it an unmistakable profile. The Luftwaffe envisioned it as a terror weapon, one that could shatter enemy morale before ground troops even arrived. Each rivet, each panel, each bolt of the Stuka carried the philosophy of intimidation. The aircraft didn't just fly, it announced its presence like a predator stalking its prey. Before the war even began, the world had unknowingly witnessed the birth of a monster in the skies. What truly set the Stuka apart was not its bombs, but its voice. Mounted on its landing gear were small sirens called Jericho trumpets. As the plane dove toward its target at terrifying angles, these sirens screamed like banshees across the battlefield. The sound alone could make soldiers drop their weapons and run for cover. It wasn't just a design choice. It was psychological warfare perfected. Nazi propaganda used recordings of the siren in newsreels to project fear and dominance. For the enemy, the Stuka's cry became the soundtrack of despair, the sound of death falling from the sky. The wail of the Stuka was engineered to hit human ears like a knife, the perfect pitch to trigger primal fear. It blurred the line between machine and monster, between sound and suffering. Even long after a raid ended, that scream would echo in the minds of those who survived. When Germany invaded Poland in September 1939, the Stuka led the charge. Flying low and fast, Stukas blasted bridges, railroads, and enemy positions, paving the way for fast-moving tanks. This was Blitzkrieg, lightning war, where coordination between air and ground made traditional defenses crumble. In the skies above Warsaw, columns of smoke rose as the wail of Stukas echoed over burning cities. Within weeks, Poland fell. The Stuka proved that speed and terror could achieve what artillery and infantry could not: shock and paralysis. Entire cities trembled before their arrival. Civilians watched helplessly as the sky itself seemed to scream. In the first months of the war, the Stuka was more than a bomber. It was a symbol that Germany's war machine had awakened. Each Stuka crew, usually a pilot and a rear gunner, trained to dive at near vertical angles. They would climb to 15,000 feet, spot their target, flip inverted, and then dive almost straight down. At 500 kilometers per hour, the pilot released the bomb and pulled up just seconds before crashing. Automatic dive recovery systems saved countless lives, but the precision came from nerves of steel. A single Stuka could hit a moving tank or ship with deadly accuracy, a terrifying capability in the early days of the war. In those final seconds before release, the pilot faced gravity, noise, and death all at once. It wasn't just a mission, it was a test of human endurance. Few aircraft demanded so much courage, and fewer still rewarded it with such destruction. In 1940, as German forces swept through the Low Countries, the Stuka again proved its worth. It destroyed fortifications along the Maginot Line and crushed resistance in Belgium. During the Battle of France, columns of Allied troops and refugees were attacked from the air with devastating precision. Bridges collapsed, convoys scattered. French morale broke under the weight of relentless aerial bombardment. To many survivors, the scream of the Stuka meant one thing: run or die. Entire columns vanished in minutes under the fury of precision bombing. Soldiers abandoned their weapons and fled, haunted by the siren's cry. France fell not only to the German army, but to the psychology of terror carried by the Stuka's wings. At Dunkirk, tens of thousands of trapped Allied soldiers looked to the skies in terror. Stuka swooped low, strafing beaches and ships as British and French forces waited for rescue. The piercing wail of the Jericho trumpets echoed across the sand as explosions tore through the harbor. Although British anti-aircraft guns fought back fiercely, the psychological effect was immense. Every dive bomb felt personal, every scream unforgettable. Even Churchill later called Dunkirk both a miracle and a tragedy, a moment where human courage met mechanical terror. Those who survived the beaches would never forget that sound. To them, it wasn't just the enemy. It was a haunting reminder that survival sometimes depended on silence and luck. Dunkirk became both a scar and a legend. After France, Stuka struck across the Mediterranean, sinking ships in the Aegean, attacking British bases in Crete, and terrorizing desert columns in North Africa. Their ability to destroy precise targets made them invaluable to Rommel's Afrika Korps. Allied convoys dreaded the distinctive whistle from above, a warning that death was seconds away. But with every victory came a warning. The Stuka's slow speed and fixed gear made it easy prey for faster Allied fighters. In the clear skies over the desert, there was nowhere to hide. The Stuka became both hunter and hunted. Yet, for a time, its shadow stretched across continents, from the sands of Libya to the waves of the Mediterranean. Even as losses mounted, crews flew with unwavering resolve, turning every sortie into a fight for survival. The desert sun bore witness to both their triumphs and their downfall, etching their legacy into the endless horizon. When the Luftwaffe turned its attention to Britain in 1940, the Stuka met its match. Against the agile Spitfires and Hurricanes of the RAF, the slow dive bomber was slaughtered. Its thick armor couldn't save it from enemy guns. Stuka losses mounted so rapidly that the Luftwaffe pulled them from large-scale raids. The Battle of Britain proved a brutal truth: terror alone could not win air superiority. From that point on, the Stuka's dominance began to fade. The once invincible weapon became a liability. In British skies, its scream was no longer the sound of fear, but of desperation. The hunters of Europe had become the hunted. The Luftwaffe was forced to adapt, shifting the Stuka's role from offensive spearhead to close air support. What was once the pride of German air power now fought only where enemy fighters could not reach. When Germany invaded the Soviet Union in 1941, the Stuka found new life. On the vast Eastern Front, it excelled once again in close air support. Pilots like Hans-Ulrich Rudel became legends, destroying hundreds of tanks and bridges. The Stuka evolved into the Ju-87G, armed with twin 37mm cannons for tank hunting. Despite freezing weather and constant danger, the Stuka remained a key weapon in the Luftwaffe's arsenal. It was outdated, but in the hands of skilled aces, still deadly. The snowy plains became their new hunting ground. Each sortie was a battle of endurance against cold, fire, and fate. Even as the Red Army advanced, the Stuka refused to vanish quietly. Its distinctive silhouette haunted the eastern skies long after its prime had passed. For German troops on the ground, the sight of a diving Stuka meant hope. For their enemies, it meant certain destruction. Hans-Ulrich Rudel, the most decorated German pilot of the war, flew over 2,500 Stuka missions. He destroyed more than 500 tanks, several bridges, and even a Soviet battleship. His skill turned the aging Stuka into a legend of resilience. Even as the tide turned against Germany, Rudel continued flying until the final days of the Reich. To his enemies, he was a ghost in the sky. To his comrades, the embodiment of the Stuka spirit, relentless, fearless, and deadly precise. Rudel became both man and myth, defying odds and injuries alike. His aircraft was battered, scorched, repaired, and reborn countless times. Through him, the Stuka lived on as the final echo of Germany's once feared air power. Even after losing a leg in combat, he returned to the skies, refusing to quit. His legend outlived the war itself, symbolizing both the brilliance and futility of Germany's doomed air campaign. From Poland to the Soviet Union, the Stuka's siren became synonymous with fear. Civilians learned to recognize the sound before the bombs hit. It was a psychological weapon, eroding willpower long before battles began. Even when the sirens were later removed to improve performance, the legend of the scream endured. Soldiers who survived Stuka attacks described it as the sound of hell itself, mechanical, unstoppable, inhuman. That scream lingered in nightmares for decades. Children grew up remembering the noise that once ruled the skies. The Stuka didn't just bomb cities, it bombed the human mind. Its eerie wail became an audible symbol of total war, where fear itself was a weapon. In the memories of those who lived through it, the Stuka's cry never truly fell silent. Even today, recordings of that sound send chills down the spine, a haunting echo of the terror once unleashed from above. By 1943, the Stuka was a relic. Faster Allied fighters dominated the skies, and radar-guided defenses made dive bombing suicidal. The Luftwaffe converted surviving Stukas into night attack and anti-tank variants, but it was too late. The weapon that once symbolized unstoppable force had become a desperate tool in a losing war. The Stuka's reign of terror was ending, but its legacy was already immortal. On airfields across Europe, burned-out Stukas lay forgotten, their wings broken, their sirens silent. Once instruments of fear, they now stood as monuments to a bygone age of war, a warning from history written in metal. Mechanics stripped their frames for parts, and hangars once filled with roaring engines fell eerily quiet. The Stuka's shadow faded from the sky, but not from the pages of history. In the silence that followed, its legend endured, a chilling reminder of how innovation and terror once shared the same wings. After the war, the Stuka became a symbol of Nazi aggression and the dark art of psychological warfare. Military historians still debate whether it was truly effective or merely terrifying. Its design inspired generations of precision strike aircraft, but none would dare imitate its siren. The world had learned a chilling lesson. Sometimes fear itself is the most powerful weapon. Museums today display Stukas not as triumphs of engineering, but as warnings of human cruelty. Behind their silent propellers lies a story of ambition, fear, and the weaponization of sound. Visitors stand before their jagged remains, imagining the chaos they once unleashed from above. What was once a machine of dominance is now a relic of caution, frozen in time. The Stuka reminds us that every innovation in war carries an echo, one that continues long after the guns fall silent. The Jericho trumpet was a marvel of cruel design, a simple propeller-driven siren mounted on the undercarriage. It didn't add to the plane's lethality, only its psychological power. Engineers tuned it to scream at the frequency most disturbing to the human ear. That wail, combined with the descending plane, created a perfect storm of panic. It turned physics and sound into instruments of terror, a reminder that war's most effective weapons often attack the mind, not just the body. Every dive became a symphony of fear, a mechanical orchestra conducted by gravity and hatred. The siren wasn't built for victory. It was built to make humanity tremble. Even battle-hardened soldiers froze at its cry, their training drowned by instinctive terror. The Jericho trumpet proved that in war, sound could wound the soul long before shrapnel struck flesh. Its haunting tone became the soundtrack of Blitzkrieg, the voice of fear itself echoing across a dying world. Even today, documentaries and films recreate the Stuka's scream to evoke the terror of war. It remains one of the most haunting sounds in military history, a symbol of fear, dominance, and the cost of blind aggression. The Junkers Ju-87 may have fallen from the sky decades ago, but its legend still echoes in the imagination. The sound of fear, the cry of the Stuka, will forever remind humanity how sound itself once became a weapon of war. In every retelling, the Stuka is not just a plane, it's an echo from the past, a chilling warning from history's skies. Long after its metal has rusted away, its scream will never truly fade. To study the Stuka is to confront the psychology of war, how technology and terror can merge into one. It stands as a dark monument to human ingenuity twisted by conflict. The echo of its siren reminds us that fear, once unleashed, can outlast even the machines that created it.